Ladies and gentlemen, our final storyteller, Gary Maio.
Thank you. This is dedicated to all my brother and sister law enforcement first responders, all first responders that suffer in silence with PTSD. Speak out. On July 5th, 1985, I raised my right hand and swore an oath to protect and serve the people of New York City. That was the first day of my career as a New York City police officer, which spanned 23 years. I became an officer because I believed that one person could truly make a difference in another person's life. I loved my job. I had passion and purpose. I would always tell people I was doing God's work. I felt that way. A number of years passed by, and I was lucky enough to be promoted to detective. As a detective, I was involved in many serious investigations, saw the worst of what one human being could do to another. But again, I found purpose in it because I was bringing some comfort to someone. On 9/11, Tuesday, September 11, 2001, it was like any other day. As a detective, I was assigned to go to court that day. It was part of the process. I had to go testify. And I was in my bedroom getting dressed, turned on the TV around 8:45, and there it was. One of the Twin Towers had been struck and was on fire. Well, I said, well, this is not going to be a normal day, right? Not knowing really what was going to happen. At that point, we thought it was a small plane, no big deal. So I get dressed hurriedly, get out of the house, and make my way towards the highway to go to court. And on the way through my neighborhood, through the main streets, there was no traffic. This was rush hour. There was no traffic. There were no cars. A 15-minute commute to the highway took less than 5 minutes. As I got to the highway and crossed over the overpass, I saw dozens of people standing on the overpass. All the cars were parked, and everyone was looking in one direction. Now, I had taken this way to work every day for a number of years, and my view was the Manhattan skyline. And there were the Twin Towers there all the time. Beautiful view. This day was a little different. When I looked over and saw what people were staring at, there it was. The tower was on fire. The sky was filled with smoke, and everyone was frozen in time. There was no talking. There was no movement. It was as though everyone on that overpass was a statue. I continued on my way to work, on the way to court, and never made it there. Got a phone call, mobilized, get back to your command, get your uniform on, get into Manhattan. Shortly thereafter, me and 5 of my comrades, other detectives, we have our uniforms, we get into an unmarked car, and we make our way to Manhattan. We chose the Williamsburg Bridge. As we go up the on-ramp of the bridge, I witnessed something that I had never seen in my life. I had worked at riots, massive political demonstrations that went bad, but never saw anything like this. The Williamsburg Bridge is very narrow, and as we drove up on the bridge, it was a wall of people coming at us. It was as though a dam had burst, and instead of water coming out, it was people. And as they got closer to our car, the look on their face is something that I'll never forget. Fear and terror was etched on their face. It's as though everyone's face was frozen at a moment with one expression, because everyone looked the same. And as they approached our car, we were trying to make our way over the bridge, they were scrambling across our hood, coming over just crawling over our car. And when I would look at the people's eyes, I recognized that they didn't even see us. They were looking past us. They were looking at the other side of the bridge where there was daylight, because the towers had come down, and they were all running for their lives. We went into the city, and for a number of days I was assigned to various duties, which led to my assignment at the Staten Island landfill. It's a garbage dump. It's closed because there was just too much garbage. It's actually a mountain on Staten Island, which is flat, but it's the highest point in Staten Island. So, on that day, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's September, so it's getting dark, right? And it was cool. Made my way up the road to the top of this landfill, and the sound of the tires on the dirt was remarkable. It was sounded though I was driving through puddles, but there was no rain. So that struck me as odd. When I got to the top of the landfill, parked my car, stepped out of the car, stepped onto the ground, and my feet sunk into the ground. It was like a swamp. I saw a line gathering in front of me. It was all detectives, so I went over there, and but on the way over there, I took a look around, and to my right were army tents with crosses on them. Some had crosses. I saw soldiers in uniform, and to my left was this vast open space, a field. And the field was monotone. It was as though I walked into a black and white photo. At that point, the wind was whirling. I mean, it was like 30-mile-an-hour winds, it felt like. The dust from Ground Zero, which was now at the landfill, was just in the air. You see, they're taking the refuse from the pile, putting it on barges and bringing it to Staten Island. Our job was to sift through all the debris. So anything that was going on there was going on in Staten Island. Eventually, they gave us our gear, helmet, a Tyvek suit that you wear when you're going to paint the house, a dust mask when you're going to do some dusting, and a pair of old fireman boots. They had cracks in them for my firefighter buddies. They put us in a group of 5 or 6 people, and they issued us our new tools: a rake, a pickaxe, and a shovel. And this 5 or 6 of us, the detectives looked, all seasoned people, we looked at each other and said, what are we doing? Why are we here? What's the mission? What's the purpose? Go out there and find something valuable. So they gave us a white bucket, a 5-gallon bucket. We took our tools and we went out to the field. A big payloader with a huge bucket would come by, sprinkle debris across the field. Once the truck left, we would go out to the field with our tools of our trade at that moment and dig through the materials. Now you have to understand, at that point, the tools of my trade were handcuffs, my gun, and my notebook. So we all were kind of lost. What are we? It was just an ongoing sense of what are we doing and where are we? Over the next 2 weeks, working 80 hours a week, I slowly began to die inside. I became disconnected from my family, disconnected from my job, and disconnected from myself. It wasn't a good place. It was a very dark place. Nothing had any meaning. It was just go through the motions. It was very deadening, very numbing. Every day we'd show up to work at the landfill, go out to the field, a gray field, dust blowing, no color. My bucket was always empty. Nothing did we find. One day, it all changed. The payloader moves away, puts all the debris out. I look off in the distance, and I see color in this gray palette. There's one dot of color. It was as though it was calling out to me, hey, I'm over here. So I made my way over with my shovel and my bucket, and I walked over and stood over it, and it was a sneaker. It had no dust on it. It was blue suede, and it had orange accents. I picked it up, and I looked at it, and I said, wow, this is valuable. I noticed that the shoelaces were tied, so I untied them, and I saw that there was contents in the shoe. I carefully removed the contents, and it was a foot. And on the foot, on the pinky toe, was a gold ring. So I put it in my bucket and appropriately brought it somewhere to be cataloged. Finding that shoe and that person's foot, it is as though my soul took a deep breath. My eyes, my vision cleared. I didn't see the dust anymore. I didn't hear the machines in the background. I felt as though I was put there for a reason. And that reason was to reconnect the victims with their families. So from that moment on, I was back to work. Thank you.